Okay, so by default, the scheduler is in the simple mode, right? It's designed to let you go in there and very quickly and easily get a schedule up and running and schedule it. It basically works off the concept of you have a playlist, and a playlist is then scheduled. And you can have multiple schedules for the playlist. So you can have, here I've got a daily and a weekend one, and they run slightly different times and whatever, which you can do. xLights also, the xSchedule also works with the concept of priority. So you can set up multiple conflicting schedules, i.e. schedules that are in theory running at exactly that point in time. And by setting different priority levels, the scheduler will pick the highest priority item and play it. So you can, if you like to just have Christmas music playing, you create a schedule which has your Christmas music playing, set it to a low priority, and then when your show kicks in, it'll interrupt it, and it will play your show. When it finishes, it goes back to playing the other item. The scheduler also has, it actually runs several things at once. So it has a concept of a background sequence. And a background sequence would be typically a constrained number of channels to run maybe your tune 2 sign or something, right? And it would just pump data out to that tune 2 sign. Then it has a scheduled sequence, whatever you've set up to play at a particular point in time. And then you can also come in and instruct it to play something right now, okay? And they sit in a kind of a stack, right? So when you tell it to go and play something right now, it interrupts the schedule and it will play whatever you want it to play. When it's done, it goes back and keeps playing the schedule, right? So it ends up with this sort of stack of things going on. All of the buttons down here, all of the buttons right down here are all customizable. You can go in and you can change them. All of those buttons also appear on the web UI. So you can choose, you can add a button there which is to play your favourite song. You can add one button per song in your show and just press the button to kick a song off. You can do things like, tell it to end gracefully. Say, I'm going to finish my show now, click end gracefully. It'll wait till the end of the song. It'll kick in and do your final song if you've got a closing song that you want to play, and then end. And this one, the add 20 minutes to my schedule, you can choose how long it is. It's kind of cool when you're out there, the show's about to go off, someone just drives up and you think, I'll just give it 10 more minutes. Right, it just kicks it 10 minutes onto the schedule. Doesn't actually change the schedule. The next night it will still finish at the original time, but for one time it adds 10 minutes. And if it gets 9 minutes in and someone else turns up, you can always add another 10 or 20 minutes, whatever you want to set it up for. You can also create buttons to change the brightness of your display, particularly if you're an all-pixel display. It'll just go through and modify all your channel data as it sends it out to make it dimmer. So you can also schedule that. So you can say at 10 o'clock, turn all my lights down. Or at 10 o'clock, turn the volume down. Right? You can also set the volume independently in each song. So if you've got a song that's quite loud and you just want to tone it down, you can do that. Or there's a lot of bass in it and you want to tone it down. You can create a mute button, one that just turns the music off, but remembers what volume it was on, and when you unmute it, it just goes back to whatever volume you'd had it set to. So lots of things that you can customize. The way you do that is via the options here. And this down here is where you set up all of the buttons. You can go and add new ones. You can give it whatever label you want, so you get to choose. And then there's a whole list of capabilities here that you can introduce as a button. So, you can add a pause button. You can add something to set the volume to a particular level, adjust it up or down by something. Set the brightness, increase or decrease, it'll do the same thing. A whole bunch of different things that you can do there. You can also add a run process, which will cause it to fire off a job on your PC. So, I don't know, you might have something that, a program that speaks to your FM radio transmitter or whatever, I don't know. A whole bunch of things that you can do. Generally, a simple sequence is something that just plays an animation, an FSCQ file, plays an animation and a song, an FSCQ file and an MP3, or even includes a video, right? They're simple ones. You don't need to put it in advanced mode to do that. It's pretty straightforward. If, however, you want to do more complicated things like control your projector over an Ethernet connection using the PJ Link protocol, or if you want to send out data to your radio transmitter, so you put the digital stream to tell people what song's on or whatever else, all of those capabilities, they're more advanced capabilities and you need to go into an advanced mode. And to do that, we come up here, we right click, and we say add an advanced playlist. We give our playlist a name. Screen's just way small. And the difference between an advanced playlist and a regular playlist is it's actually got this concept of a step. And a step is basically contains everything that's going to happen at a single point in time, right? So normally only one thing happens at a time. I play an animation, I play your lights and a song, or lights and a video, and we consider that one thing. But you can actually run multiple things at once. You can even play 2 songs at once. It won't sound very good, but you can in theory do it. So once you've created a step, again, you right click and you get all of these things that you can potentially add. This one here is call a web page. So if you've got a web page out there and you want to call a URL to tell the web page what song you're currently playing so that your website reflects what your lights are currently doing, technically possible. You can run any program on your PC, so any integration you want to do is possible. RDS is telling your stereo or telling your FM broadcaster to put that extra data into the channel data, so the car radio says what song's playing on their radio, or that sort of stuff. PJ Link is the thing that allows you to control projectors if they support the protocol, so you can turn the bulb on, turn the bulb off, things like that. So your virtual standing, you want to turn it off during the show. If your projector supports it, you can turn it off at a point without necessarily stopping it. Things like All Set lets you go and do things like just set a bunch of channels. So if you want to blank something out or something, you can do that. Adding an image. So if you've got a projector and you just want to put a GIF or a static image up. Oh, what happened there? Oh, must have clicked on it. You can add videos. You can play multiple concurrent videos. So if you have several projectors connected to your computer, in theory you can run a different video on each one. I've run it without to about 6. After 6 it starts to really suffer from the video processing overhead. What else? Text. So text allows you to do text overlays. So you can have your matrix, you describe to the scheduler how your matrix is laid out, and then you can place text onto the matrix. So you can overlay countdowns to Christmas and things like that, which obviously you don't want to do in your sequencer because you end up with lots of FSCQ files and changing them every night, right, Shane?
Yes. And when you don't change them, you get a 5-year-old that tells you haven't changed them.
Exactly. So the scheduler can do things like generate that on the fly. You can also change that text on the fly using a web call. So Brad, you want to change the text, you call a web page, you call a web call, and you can change the name that you display. Sorry?
When are these getting added to the pipeline?
I have no idea, but I have spoken to the captain about some of the stuff that I put in back in February. So I don't know. Not only that, but when you add the text, you can control how it actually interacts with the data that's already coming from the scheduler. So you can mask out the existing data. So whatever you've got on your matrix, you can say, I want to overlay the text, but I want to mask the text out, or blend it, or just override it, all possible. The only tricky thing with text, so you've got a whole bunch of things here around orientation and movement and speed. The blend mode tells how it should actually integrate with the existing data. You control how long it goes for, and so on. So the other really cool thing that I think, and this is what I think FPP needs more of, it's got some of it, is output processing. The concept of output processing is having read the FSCQ file, having all this data and being about to pump it out to your lights. I actually think it's kind of nice to be able to manipulate the data just before it goes out. And output processing lets you select individual channels and do a couple of really cool things. So the remap, which FPP does support, lets you take a set of data from a particular channel range and copy it somewhere else in your display. So if you're running an LOR controller, you've got a dead output, and you want to plug that thing into another one, you don't want it to redo all your data, you can just remap the data across and we copy it just before it gets sent out. And you don't need to regenerate everything. The add set, this allows you to force a particular channel range to a particular value. So if you've got 1 pixel, the red colour's out, and you hate looking at it because it's always quite slightly out of sync with everything else with the wrong colour, and you just want to turn that pixel off, set those 3 channels to black. That pixel stays off, and it doesn't annoy the crap out of you, other than the fact that it's black, but it could be worse, right? Dim lets you choose a channel range and say, I just want to dim those channels, right? So it just reduces all the values that are sent to that channel on the fly. Dim on white is kind of cool, because what it does is it looks at the pixel data and it says if the red, the green and the blue channels are exactly the same value, only then dim them. Right, so when you're running red, so when I run my Megatree, right, I severely underpower my Megatree at 2400 pixels, 1 5-volt power supply. Right? So when it goes all white, it looks crap. Right? But I can just dim it when it's all white. So when it's all red, it's fine. When it's all green, it's fine. When it's all white, it's crap. So I can just dim it down to 40% or 20% when it's all white and uses less power. So, and colour ordering allows you to do things like reshuffle the bytes. Right, so do the colour reordering, which is kind of cool if you're running an older controller that doesn't do it. Right, or you're running a controller, so I've got, you know, a long strip and I've replaced 1 strip on my model and my controller doesn't let me do it as a virtual string. I can just choose that strip, just choose those set of channels and shuffle them all around before the data goes out. The controller doesn't have to worry about it, and because your sequencing software can't do that either. Right, so it's kind of the only place that you can do it. And reverse lets you reverse a set of pixels, so it's kind of like doing a zigzag type thing. So that's kind of cool. You probably don't want to do too much of this on the fly because it's a lot of extra processing to do as it writes the data out. But it definitely lets you do some things that potentially you can't do any other way, particularly if you're running older controllers without a whole bunch of advanced features. What else is worth talking about? Virtual matrices, they're also supported by FPP. So this is the concept of taking the video out and creating a virtual matrix on the screen and then projecting it. Right, so you can take your video projector and say, I want to make that a 200 by 100 matrix. You set it up in xLights, you sequence it like it's a matrix, but it actually is a projector that projects up onto a wall or something. Okay, so it's a virtual matrix. You can do the same thing in FPP. And then the matrices are here because if you want to do text or if you want to play Tetris, you need to describe to the scheduler exactly how your matrix or tree is laid out. I think that's it. Yeah, you can play Tetris on your tree, on your phone with sound.
No, James, no.
Everyone's going to do it once, or I am, at least once.
Maybe at 1 o'clock in the morning.
I'm waiting to see the first person who's actually going to post a video of them playing it for real rather than just in test. So the other thing we built into the scheduler is we wanted the scheduler to integrate properly with FPP. So the scheduler is designed to act as both a master and a remote for FPP. So if you want to use a bunch of FPP remotes, but you don't want to run your show off the Pi, you can run it off the scheduler and it will broadcast the data out to the slaves and they will do their thing just like they do normally. And also in reverse, if you do want to run your show on the Pi, but you want to use the scheduler to pump some data out to some channels, it'll also act as a remote as well. So it'll drive a bunch of video for you or whatever else it happens to be.
With the scheduler, is it possible to, it's got different layers, at one point in time to, say, take out the Megatree and leave that regular schedule running so that you were using the Megatree to play Tetris or something like that?
So when you put it into Tetris mode, it will let everything else run and it will play Tetris on your tree. I believe it keeps the rest of the show running.
You would want to stop everything. So
No.
one donation to the game of Tetris. Now I know how to make it. That's what I was actually thinking right there.
I think it works that way. I wouldn't swear by it. I've only ever used it as Tetris. Yeah, you'll let me know.
Next year we'll be back to table.
Or there'll be a feature request saying, "Oh, I need it to work that way." Yeah. Yeah.
Do you remember Adelaide?
Both xLights and the scheduler have in the tools menu a view log. If you're having problems, the log file often has detail around what was happening, including all the events that occurred during the schedule. There's also a check schedule, just like there's a check sequence in xLights. So the check sequence in xLights looks for all the most common causes of problems, the things that you may or may not have meant to do, the sorts of things that cause unexpected behaviour. It checks for it and gives you a report and tells you everything. Check schedule does a similar sort of thing. It looks through the schedule and tries to spot anything that might cause anomalies and warns you about it. The web interface. So the way the web interface works is basically the xLight scheduler is a web server. And so you can punch in the web address of your machine and it should bring up the web page. Now, if you're already running something on your PC that is already a web server, you'll get an error when you start the scheduler. It'll say, well, someone else already seems to be a web server. And you can go into the tools, into the options. And down the bottom here, right, by default, a web page is on port 80. You can change that to 81 or 8080 or some other web page, web port if you want to. Now, generally speaking, I would not put this on the internet. I make no warranties about the web server and its quality. So I wouldn't generally put it on the broad internet. All right. Is there anything else here that's worth talking about? Oh, it can bring in your old playlist. So if you were using the old scheduler in xLights last year and you've got your playlist, you can import that and it will convert it over so that you can play it this year.
Last year I had the old scheduler.
Yep.
And I was using TeamViewer to link my phone to my PC so that out in the yard I could
Control it.
control.
Yep.
How do I do that now? Because I know your new system can do it, but how do I do it?
You need to know the web address of your PC. I don't know what this one is, but fortunately, because it's the local machine, I can just type localhost in. And it brings up the web page. And the web page will tell you what's going on. You can come up, show, and play things and whatever else.
Oh, so that's bringing up what's on my PC to run it. Yep.
Yeah, so you're just using a web browser on your phone. You don't need TeamViewer anymore.
But provided you connect it to your local network.
Yes, providing you're connected to your local home network so that you can get to your machine over an IP address.
Through Wi-Fi.
Through Wi-Fi?
Yep.
Yep, you can just bring that up on your phone.
Oh, that's cool. This is more and I can access all those new buttons.
All those new buttons, so all of those buttons here. Okay, makes them nice and big because you've got fat fingers on your phone. It'll also filter out the buttons that make no sense remotely. So there are a couple of buttons that you can set up that only make sense when you're in the UI itself, because you can only edit the schedule and do things like that in the UI. So it gets rid of all of those and leaves you with the buttons to stop and start and You can add whatever you want on there, just like the big buttons plug in FPP. All right. And because it's got this web interface, and there's another video I posted where I took an Arduino, I put a bunch of physical buttons onto the Arduino, and I had the Arduino calling the scheduler, telling it what to do. Right? It's the same thing, exactly the same thing.
This is probably a networking question more than anything, but how do you, if you've got this on your home network, how do you set it up so you can't access that through the internet, but you can through the network?
So if you run this on your home network and you don't do anything to your router to expose it to the internet, by default it's not exposed. Okay, in order to expose it to the internet, you would need to do port forwarding on your router. Okay.
Don't worry about that till the 30th November.
Yeah.
Yeah, so to be honest, the biggest risk for this year is the number of bugs I'm going to get reported in October, November as people start to get it set up. And I'm kind of expecting that, but that's cool. We'll deal with those.
So with those new buttons on here, you can walk out and say, oh, you can have the button which is play this song now.
Yep.
So I can do that from here rather than using TeamViewer.
That's right. That's right. And it won't, it'll pause your schedule, play your song, and then go back and play your schedule. Right. So you don't lose your place or anything.
That is very cool.
You can't do that with FTP.
What's the maximum number of buttons you can have?
There's none.
So does it
The page will get longer and longer. That's all. Yeah, you just have to scroll.
So with the pausing issue, the schedule's still playing in the background and then it skips to where it was?
Pauses.
Or it
Stops.
So it'll extend
It stops.
by whatever amount of time you actually.
No, it won't extend the end time of the schedule, but it will pause where it was at in the schedule. So if it's in the middle of song 1, stops in the middle of song 1, plays your song, and goes back and picks up from where it was left off. There is another, you can create another button which says play this song at the end of this song. And it will wait for the current song to finish, and then it will kick in and play the song that you want.
So you can do, through that, you can also control the projector light and all that sort of stuff as well.
You could create a button to turn your projector on and off, assuming it supports the PJ-Link protocol. Yes, you can. You can create it to run any program. So any program that you can run, anything you can script on your PC, you can remotely launch through this if that's what you want to do.
You could also do public machines, no machines, I suppose,
So technically, could you do that? Probably. Probably, to be honest, there's an API in there that, to be honest, lets you set any channel data. So you can set any data. It's a bit more work, but there's an API under the surface that lets you set any channel to anything for any period of time. But it's more involved. And it's not hugely well documented because our documentation guys kind of finished up late last year, and so documentation's a bit scratchy. There's lots of videos, and I'm happy to support it. Any other questions?
Sensational, Kev. That's sensational.
It's funny, it's a reverse of the journey we've been on, because xLights was originally a player, and then we stripped it out. And the reason to be honest, the reason I stripped it out is because it just doesn't make a lot of sense to me that the scheduler is in the editor. You know, you edit and then you play. It doesn't make sense that they're together, so I pulled them apart.